Namaste, good morning, and welcome to the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston and our Sunday service. Om Apadam Apahartaram Dataram Sarvasampadam Lokabhiramam Shri Ramam Bhuyo Bhuyo Namamyaham Ramaya Ramachandraya Ramabhadraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. We salute Sri Rama again and again, who is the remover of distress, the giver of all prosperity, and the delight of the world. Our salutations to Rama the beautiful, Rama the gracious and virtuous, the Lord of the Raghus, the Lord of Sita, and the Lord of all. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So this morning, as announced, I'm speaking on Sri Rama in the series on gods and goddesses. Now, Sri Rama, of course, technically, he is considered an incarnation of God. But the incarnations of God in the Hindu tradition are really the only difference between them and the gods and goddesses is that they have a human life, an incarnated life. Otherwise, they have the same place, the same purpose, the same status as gods and goddesses. That is, Sri Rama, one can worship him as the Lord of the universe, as God, as Ishvara, just as one might worship Shiva, Durga, Kali, Vishnu, etc. So Rama, Krishna, the incarnations of God have the same status as the gods and goddesses, but they have what one could consider, from one standpoint, the advantage of having a human history. That is, of having lived in this world of ours, among us, as a human being. Not in the sense of Christian theology that Christ was an incarnation who was unique, both God and man, but uniquely so. We are creatures, God is the creator, and the two never are the same. But in Jesus, the two natures are united. No, not in that sense. In the Hindu sense, the incarnation is fully human and fully divine, just as we are fully human and fully divine. There's not a contradiction, there's not a separation between creator and creature in the Hindu tradition. Even the ant, the worm, the rat, they are all perfect God, incarnations of God. But the incarnations of God in the special technical sense who are worshipped are such because they are God who consciously comes and decides to take human birth, whereas we are incarnations of God also, but unconscious incarnations of God. At present, in our present ignorance, it does us no good that we are incarnations of God. We are ignorant of the fact, and we spend our lives, if we are spiritually minded, we spend our lives trying to remember that we are incarnations of God, that we are the divine in human form. And so that's one difference between the incarnation and regular beings like us, according to the Hindu tradition. Another difference comes along with that is a difference of power. That the incarnation of God, in the technical sense, comes consciously into human birth with the desire to help humanity and with the memory of their divinity. And along with that, they bring tremendous power. Divine power to bring salvation to many people in their lifetime. And even after they pass away, they retain an enlightened personality, like a god or goddess, and continue to give liberation to those who seek it. And so, again, so this can be considered a lecture in the series on gods and goddesses, even though Sri Rama is more often thought of as an incarnation of God. So the importance of, well, no, first let me begin by saying the reason for choosing this subject for today. And that is that this past Wednesday, which I believe was April 14th, if I'm not confusing my dates, but it was this past Wednesday, was Ram Navami, the 9th day of the lunar fortnight, which is the birth date, according to tradition, of Sri Ramachandra. And so that date changes in its placement with or its intersection with the Western calendar from year to year, but it usually comes sometime around now, sometime in April. I don't know if it ever comes as early as March, but it often comes in different parts of April. So in the celebration of Rama Navami, we didn't have a celebration here on Wednesday, but we are celebrating it today through the talk in recognition of the tremendous importance that Sri Rama had for Indian civilization and for much of the East, as I will shortly tell. The great Chinese writer and scholar Lin Yutang, a modern scholar, that is, he lived in the 20th century, and is famous for two books. He wrote more, but he's famous for two books that were widely disseminated, and you find them in most libraries that have a section on Eastern thought. One was The Wisdom of China, and the other was The Wisdom of India. He himself was a Protestant Christian, Chinese by birth, but a Protestant Christian. But he wrote these books on the traditional wisdom of China and the traditional wisdom of India, both beautiful books with excerpts from the various writings of saints and sages in both countries, in both cultures. He said in his introduction to his Wisdom of India book, a beautiful introduction, well worth reading and thinking over. He said that when he came to the study of India and began to prepare for writing this volume on the wisdom of India, that he had assumed that he would concentrate on the importance of the Upanishads and maybe the Bhagavad Gita, but certainly the Vedas and the Upanishads as the fountain source of Indian culture. But what he found after he began to study India and her culture and traditions was that the itihasas, the itihasa means the history books. And in the technical term itihasa, Sanskrit term itihasa, refers to the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, these two great epic poems which relate to the ancient times in India, to the story of Rama, and the Mahabharata, the story of Krishna. He said he found that the itihasas, these two great epic poems, were far more influential in Indian culture and the daily life of Hindus than the Upanishads or the Veda, or the early part of the Vedas as well. And especially the imprint of the Ramayana, that it had colored every aspect of Indian life down to the present day, the attitudes of the people, the customs of the people. And I can say from my own experience that that is true, and that wherever you go in India, you find some relation to the area, to the wanderings of Sri Rama. When I was at Mayavati, there was a place called Maneshwar in the Himalayan hills there in Kumaon, just about maybe 2 miles, 3 miles at most. Yeah, probably 3 miles, 3.5 miles from the Mayavati ashram. Walk through the forest on a footpath. There's a temple which is known in the area as Maneshwar, which is a Pahari corruption of Manasarovar. And the story is that Pandavas, when they were on their way to Manasarovar for a vow that they had taken, that they would bathe in Manasarovar Lake, that on the way to Manasarovar, they were delayed by fighting various demons and so forth. And so when they got to this point in the Kumaon Hills, they realized that now is the time that we had vowed that we would take our sacred bath in the Manasarovar near Mount Kailas in present-day Tibet. And so Arjuna, the great hero, shot an arrow into the earth, and his arrow was so powerful it went through the earth up to Lake Manasarovar. And so the water from Lake Manasarovar came back through the hole made by the arrow. And there is indeed a spring there, not that I believe it actually comes from Manasarovar through Arjuna's arrow, but there is a spring there that has water that people in the area consider sacred. And they consider it as coming from Manasarovar, as sacred as the water in Manasarovar. And so wherever you go in India, you find the tales of the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Just several years ago, for the first time, I went to Ladakh. I had been to Kashmir before, but for the first time to Ladakh and Jammu, as well as a second trip to Kashmir. And there in Jammu, we went to the temple of Jambavan, the great bear hero of the Ramayana. And so again, wherever you go in India, you find these tales of from the two great epics. And so Rama and Krishna and the Pandavas, through these two epics, Rama and his associates, and then the Pandavas and their associates, their association is spread over the whole of India. And then the cultural influence is tremendous. But it's not just in India that the Ramayana has had a tremendous influence. The Ramayana, much more than the Mahabharata, has had a tremendous influence over much of Southeast Asia, from Tibet, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Indonesia, all the way to the Philippines. The Ramayana has left its influence. There is among one of the ethnic groups in the Philippines, there is the story that they have indigenized, made their own, the story of the Ramayana. And in each area, in Indonesia and Malaysia and Thailand, etc., they give some local coloring to the story of the Ramayana, but it has deeply influenced all of these cultures. So even in countries that later became Buddhist, like Thailand, the king of Thailand always has in his name Rama. Rama forms part of his name because Rama, the great king of Ayodhya, and Rama Rajya, the kingdom established by Rama, which was the ideal of polity, the ideal of a kingdom, of a political ideal of India. So because of the importance of Rama as the king and as the ideal of Dharma, the king of Thailand is always named Ram something. And it's interesting, or for some reason, Vietnam is the only country in that region which doesn't have its version of the Ramayana, and where the Ramayana doesn't seem to have penetrated, even though there were parts of Vietnam that used to be Hindu. But the Ramayana, there's no vestige of that left. But in Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, all of these countries, you find images of Hanuman, even now, images of Rama, images of Garuda. And of course, the national airlines of Indonesia is Garuda Airlines. And so all of these figures from the Ramayana have had a deep impression. And of course, the story of Sri Rama is very important in our own Ramakrishna tradition. Sri Ramakrishna himself, his father was a great worshiper of Rama, and he named all of his sons after Rama. His first son, the eldest brother of Sri Ramakrishna, was Ram Kumar, and then Rameshwar, who was named after their father went to Rameshwaram in South India and came back and had a son and named him Rameshwar in honor of the trip to Rameshwaram in the south. And then when Sri Ramakrishna was born, though he was named Gadadhar after the deity who spoke to Ram, the father, but he was known in the family as Ramakrishna. And that's common in at least some parts of India, especially in Bengal, that one person will have 2 or 3 or 4 different names. There'll be the astrological name, there'll be the birth name, there'll be the name that they're called in the family, and then oftentimes a nickname as well. But Ramakrishna, though he was Gadadhar and Gadai, he was also called Ramakrishna from his childhood. And so the family of Sri Ramakrishna was very devoted to Rama. And then in the life of Holy Mother, her own father was named Ramachandra, and they were devoted to Rama also. And Holy Mother, it's interesting, you see in the lives of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and even Swami Vivekananda, that you find this intersection of history and mythology constantly coming to, or you find the two intersecting constantly in their lives. And so Holy Mother, when she went long after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, many years after, it was around 1909, I think, 1908, 1909, something like that, she went to South India at the invitation of Swami Ramakrishnananda, and among other places, she went to Rameshwaram. So Rameshwaram, there's a famous, huge temple, gigantic temple, the types of temples that you only see in South India. The Rameshwaram is gigantic. And in the temple is to Shiva, but there's a Shiva lingam, which it said that Sita herself, when she returned from Sri Lanka, she established the worship of Shiva there and worshiped the Shiva lingam. So Holy Mother, when she went into the temple and went into the sanctum, which most people are not allowed to do, but she was allowed to go in personally because of her status. She was allowed to go in and personally offer worship to the Shiva lingam there. And when she saw it, she was in a semi-abstracted mood, a semi-ecstatic state. And she said, "Oh, it's just as I left it." And her companion said, "Mother, what did you say?" And then she caught herself and said, "Oh, nothing, nothing. I was just mumbling, nothing." They couldn't get her to say it again. So what does that mean? Who knows? Was that a lingam actually established by Sita many thousands of years ago? Or was she speaking from a mythological standpoint? That she, as Sita, in the mythological universe, had established the lingam. We don't know, and she would never speak about it again. But there are these intersections again of history and mythology in the lives of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and even Swamiji. And then Swamiji himself, from the time he was a little boy, he had great devotion to Sri Ram. He was extraordinarily devoted to Rama. Then one day he heard the Sais, the man who took care of the carriage and the horses for the family, talking about how horrible marriage was. He had had some bad experience in his marriage, and he went on talking about how evil marriage was. And the boy, Narendra, hearing that, thought that Ramachandra was married also, and that's a bad thing. And then he stopped his worship of Ramachandra because he thought Ramachandra was married to Sita. If marriage is such a terrible thing, then how can I worship him anymore? So he stopped. But that wasn't the end. Later, when he came to Sri Ramakrishna, at Kashipur, the garden house where Sri Ramakrishna passed away, Sri Ramakrishna one evening initiated him into the Rama mantra. And for the whole night, Swamiji ran around, or Narendra, the future Vivekananda, ran around the garden house in ecstasy, shouting, "Ram, Ram, Ram," just shouting the whole night, running around the house again and again and again, tirelessly. In an ecstatic state that the mantra of Rama had brought him to. And then when he came back from his first trip to America, he told Holy Mother that, Mother, last time I jumped across to the land of the demons, but this time they took me in their own ship. Sri Lanka was where Hanuman jumped to, was considered the land of the demons. And so going from Aryavarta, going from India to the land of Sri Lanka, Swamiji compared to going to America and Europe, and said that the previous time I had to jump across the ocean, but this time they took me in their own ship, comparing himself to Hanuman. And indeed, when you look at Swamiji, you can compare him to various great figures. You can compare him to Shiva. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that he was a partial incarnation of Shiva. But also there's the comparison to Hanuman, the great devotee of Rama. And then Swami Brahmananda, one of the other great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, he established the singing of Ram Nam, Tulsidasa's composition of 108 names of Rama, plus some introductory and conclusionary hymns to Rama in Sanskrit. He established that at Belar Mutt, and then it has spread to centers around the world. We have had it here once a month for years. We only stopped it during the pandemic, and we hope to start it again once we are able to open again. It's hard to have Sankirtan when there's nobody here. So, but when we once again have in-group or in-person meetings, then we hope to start Ram Nam again. And so Swami Brahmananda established Ram Nam. It's even sung at Mayavati, where no worship is allowed, and no bowing down to pictures or anything, but there is Ram Nam. And Swami Brahmananda used to say that, first let me say, as introductory explanation, that the tradition is that wherever Rama's name is sung, there Hanuman is present, though not visible, but he's present. But Swami Brahmananda used to say that he would see Hanuman whenever they sang the Ram Nam Sankirtan. He would see Hanuman in the form of an old man who would come, sit in the midst of the Sankirtan, the singing party, and then when it was over, he would devoutly bow down and then disappear, but someone that he recognized as Hanuman. That is coming in the form of this old man who would just appear for every Ram Nam. And so when we have Ram Nam with the full worship of Rama and Hanuman, then we set out an asana, a seat, a carpet on the floor for Hanuman to join the singing, in recognition of the fact that wherever the name of Rama is sung, there Hanuman comes. But again, Swami Brahmananda actually saw it. And then Swami Niranjanananda was said by Sri Ramakrishna to have been Lakshmana, the brother of Sri Rama. So in that sense also, what did he mean? Did he mean that actually Lakshmana had been historical and that he had been born again as Niranjananandaji? Or did he mean that the idea of Lakshmana was incarnated in the form of Swami Niranjanananda? We don't know. Just as he said that Swami Premananda, Baburam Maharaj, Swami Premananda was an incarnation of the foam from the ocean of love, which was Radha. Ramakrishna himself didn't deny that Radha might have been mythological, and yet he said that Baburam Maharaj, Swami Premananda, was an incarnation of the love of Radha. So Niranjananandaji, again, he said, was an incarnation of Lakshmana. Whether in a historical sense or in the sense of the idea, we don't know. And Swami Vijnanananda, the guru of Swami Swahananda, whom many of you knew, and the last president of the order who was a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vijnanananda, recognized as a great illumined soul, a Paramahamsa. Sri Ramakrishna had said that he was Jambavan, the bear devotee of Sri Rama. And so that also is interesting. Did he mean that in a historical sense? Or did he mean that in the sense of the mythological idea of Jambavan had been born as Swami Vijnanananda? And as I mentioned at the beginning of my long introduction, because this is still the introduction, when I was in Jammu, I went to a cave temple outside of Jammu, which is supposed to be the home where Jambavan, the bear devotee, lived. So all of these connections of the movement to Sri Ram. So now, coming to Sri Ram, first let me say a word. I won't go on long about this, but a word about his historicity. Was there a Sri Rama? The story is obviously mythologized. And is there any evidence that there was a Sri Rama? Historical evidence? Is there any archaeological evidence? Any documentary evidence? Well, no, there is none. There's just the story of Sri Rama that has come down to us. Let me refer back to the parallel situation with, or perhaps a parallel situation to the story of Jesus. As I said, when I spoke on Jesus back when was it? It was at Easter time. I guess that was several weeks ago. When I spoke about Jesus, I said that Swami Vivekananda had come to doubt the historicity of the Gospels, and that the life of Jesus, he didn't say that he knew this, but he began to doubt the historicity of Jesus, the account in the Gospels, because of a spiritual experience that he had had off of the island of Crete. And so he began to think, again, he didn't say that he was sure, but he began to think that the life of Jesus had been constructed, intentionally constructed. But he said also, after that, in his lecture, Christ the Messenger, that it's undoubted that some great spiritual power incarnated at that time. And that's what we know as Jesus. It doesn't matter whether the story of Jesus was constructed or was actually historical. It doesn't matter. Because the incarnation of Jesus, the power that came down, that we worship as Jesus, that power is undeniable. You can't get out of a machine something that you haven't, a capacity you have not put into the machine. And so you can't get out of an idea a power which is not there within the idea. There's so many stories, tales of great heroes of the past that didn't do what Christianity has done because of the power that was manifested as Jesus. So out of whatever it was, in whatever human form it came, as that we now call Jesus, there was a great power which incarnated. And maybe the story we have might have been constructed, might not have been constructed, but the power is undoubtable, because we see the effects of it working for 2,000 years, unstoppable for 2,000 years, and still going on, still inspiring people, still turning people's minds towards God, and the experience of Jesus, the experience of Mary, still being available to those who pray to them. And so in the same way with Rama, whether he was historical or not, there must have been someone that we now know as Sri Rama, and maybe was then known as Sri Rama also, who was the nucleus of that power which transformed the whole of Indian civilization. And not just India, again, Tibet, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines. You don't get that out of nothing. We have great tales nowadays, like the Lord of the Rings, and we have the Harry Potter, and we have other the Star Wars series and so forth. And people enjoy them, people read them, people get excited, people go to conferences, people study and learn how to speak Klingon and things like that. But you're not going to see, and of course, I may be proved wrong, but I'm quite sure I won't be proved wrong. You're not going to see 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 5,000 years of a cultural flowering coming from those stories, because there's not a reality, there's not a spiritual power at their base. It's something that someone made up, an interesting story, and some of them inspiring stories, but that's all. So there must have been one whom we now know as Sri Rama, and I'll refer to him as Sri Rama, whatever the name was. There must have been a great Sri Rama who wandered through the primeval forests of India, inspiring people, exemplifying the idea of Dharma, because all of the stories around the life of Rama are quite harmonious. It's not like he's a composite figure made up of different ideas at different times and things. All of the ideas about Sri Rama are quite harmonious. They all exemplify the ideal man, the ideal father, the ideal son, the ideal brother, the ideal king, the ideal husband, and Sita as the ideal woman, the ideal wife, the ideal mother, the ideal daughter, etc. And so these two figures, Rama and Sita, presented an ideal at an early time in Indian development, which has continued to influence the civilization through the ages, which has continued to guide men and women and children through the ages in India. Swami Vivekananda said that the image of Sita had gone so deep into the Indian consciousness that any effort to reform Indian womanhood, which he realized that the state of women in India had become very poor and that women needed to be uplifted. In fact, he said that he had himself taken birth for the sake of women and the masses, to improve the condition of women and the masses of the poor. But he said that any effort to reform the womanhood of India that does not take into account the ideal of Sita will fail, because that ideal has gone so deeply into the consciousness of India. So there must have been a Sri Rama who wandered through the primeval forests of India and who made such a deep impression on people that it lived through legend for some time until Valmiki, the great poet, composed his great poem, the Ramayana. So the Ramayana itself is a great text, a wonderful text, and a great book on Dharma, on what is righteousness, what is morality, what is proper behavior, what are ethics, etc. The Ramayana is the source book for these things. Yes, the Vedas spoke about such things, the Upanishads spoke about such things. The great law books, which started at the time of the Vedas, the great law books of India, they mention such things. But it's one thing to have ideas in texts. It's another thing to have an archetype, a human model, someone that you look to and see, this is the way Sri Ram behaved. This is the way he acted towards his brothers. This is the way he acted towards his father. This is the way he acted towards his mother and his stepmothers. Because his father, this was at a time when polygamy was practiced, especially in among Kshatriyas, the warriors, as it was in most parts of the world. So King Dasharatha, his father, had 3 wives. And the way he interacted with all of them, including his own blood mother, you have an archetype of the elder brother, the archetype of the son, the archetype of the husband, the archetype of the king, etc. And beyond that, you have the archetype of the woman, Sita. You have who was strong. There was nothing weak about Sita whatsoever. She was strength itself. And then you have the ideal of Hanuman. Extraordinary ideal. Just to think about Hanuman brings strength to a person. Swamiji said that he wanted the worship of Hanuman to increase in India. He never taught gods and goddesses outside of India because he wanted other countries to be free to take the principles and express them in their own way. But within India, he felt that the worship of Hanuman would bring a needed strength, a needed heroism back to India. A heroism, strength, valor, which once had characterized India, but had been lost through the centuries. And so, again, it's another to have an example. There's a verse from the Valmiki Ramayana, which says, Ramo vigrahavan dharma sadhu satya parakramaha Raja sarvasya lokasya devanam iva vasavaha. So Sri Rama, it says, Sri Rama is the embodiment of Dharma. Again, the embodiment, a human model of Dharma. He is sadhu, that is, he is noble, he is good. And truthfulness, satya parakramaha. Truth is his strength. Truth is his indomitable strength. Like Indra to all of the gods, Rama is the king of the entire world, the Lord of the world, not by conquering the world, but because he is the ideal of Dharma, the ideal of what a person should be. He becomes the king of the world. So one of my teachers in India, an Upa Guru of mine, that is a subsidiary guru of mine, but a great teacher of mine, he used to say that because he was very knowledgeable about Western culture, Western religion, Western mythology as well, Western psychology, though he was Hindu and even now has never left India. But he used to say how different the model of the family relationship is in the West from that in India. In India, there was the model of Rama and Lakshmana, and Bharata and Shatrughna, the four brothers, but especially Rama and Lakshmana because they are figured prominently in the story of the Ramayana. How different that is from the story in Genesis, in the Bible of the Jews and the Christians, and which is respected by the Muslims also. The story of Cain and Abel, where Cain kills Abel, the two brothers. So the original family in the Bible is one where there's fratricide, one brother killing another brother, that conflict. But in the Ramayana, the story of the faithfulness, the love, the devotion of the brothers to each other. And so this Upaguru would say how much more healthy it was for civilization to have that model rather than the example of Cain and Abel as a model of what brotherly relationship should be. It's also, the Ramayana also is a great book of polity. That is, a book which describes the ideal state. So I don't mean that we should go back to a time when the king, when we have kings and all of that. No, we're not talking about the particular form of government, but the relationships within government. What the leader of a government is supposed to be. The leader of the government is supposed to be the servant of the people as well as the father of the people. So not the servant of the people in the sense that he's to be stepped on by the people and he goes around being beaten on by the people and complained to by the people. No, not in that sense. A servant of the people as a father is a servant to his child. The good father is a servant to the child. He takes care of the child. He does what he can for the proper nourishment, the proper upbringing of the child. And so the leader of society should be a father and a fatherly servant to his people. He's to consider the welfare of his people, not his own welfare. The welfare of the people comes before his own welfare. And of course, that would be her own welfare in the case of a woman ruler as well. So in the West, we are rightly proud of our traditions, say in a country like America or England, which is so similar. We're rightly proud of our traditions of democracy, our ideals of democracy and so forth. That is something to be very proud of, something to foster, something to protect. They're very good ideals and very noble ideals. But we are wrongly blind to the great traditions of other countries. It's one thing to be proud of one's own traditions, but that becomes a detriment. It becomes a danger to others when we think that we have the right ideals and everybody else has wrong ideals, and we should impose our ideals on other people. We should spread American democracy to other countries. Well, we see how well that has worked in recent decades. No, that's egotism, that's pride, that's the blindness of pride, where we don't even consider what traditions the other people have and how their own traditions can be fostered, their own highest ideals can be fostered. Let every country grow according to the law of its own growth. But in India, they have an ideal, and that is presented in the Ramayana. Yes, many other ideas taught in other scriptures in India, but the Ramayana stands supreme. The leadership in the uh, Ramayana tradition is not a privilege, it's a responsibility. It's a sacred responsibility, not a privilege. The idea of the king as someone who usurps all power to himself and rules over other people and extracts all of the money from the poor for himself and his own enjoyment. No, that's not the idea of the leader in the Ramayana. The idea of the king or the leader is one who is responsible for the welfare of the people and who thinks of the other people's welfare before his own. So let me come to modern problems with the Ramayana, and I'll start with the test of Sita's purity, which is a great problem for modern people. When Sita was rescued by Rama and his army and Hanuman and others and brought back to India from Sri Lanka, then it said that people began to criticize Sita. And so the first test of Sita, she willingly said that I will enter into fire and show and prove my purity to others. That though I was held by Ravana for so long, that I maintained my purity and my devotion to Rama. And so she entered into the fire unscathed. And so she proved her purity. Later, once they were back in Ayodhya and Rama had been ruling the kingdom, again people began to criticize Sita. Then Sita was banished to the forest. The idea of that is an outrage to modern people, and that I understand. The modern sentiment is that Rama should have stood up to the people and said, "You all go to hell. I stand by my wife, and I don't care what you say. My wife is my wife, and you're not going to question her integrity." So yes, that's one way of handling the situation. But Rama's way was that I can't rule the kingdom if I don't have the trust of the people. And I am ruling on behalf of the people, not for myself, not for me and my wife. It's not for our pleasure that I am the king of Ayodhya. It's for the welfare of the people. And so if it's necessary for Sita to go to the forest for some time, which originally it was thought it would be for a short time, then so be it. And so again, we can't understand the story of the Ramayana, and especially such parts, unless we understand that the Ramayana is not built on the rugged individualism of modern Western society, where the individual is all important, and I'll tell the whole world to go to hell if they question me or they question my wife. Who cares about anybody else? No, that wasn't the attitude of the Ramayana. So unless we can understand the idea of sacrifice for the welfare of all, we can't understand the Ramayana. Again, it's based on the idea of Dharma, that is proper behavior, and the idea that the ruler has a responsibility above his own pleasure and happiness. Another problem, of course, with the Ramayana, well, I won't go into that. There's not time. I'll just mention it since I've already gotten into it. I don't want to leave it a mystery. The problem of the killing of Vali, the monkey king. Sri Rama killed him by trickery. So that is a problem, and that's a legitimate problem, that Rama shot Vali from behind with an arrow rather than shooting him from the front. But we have to understand the complexity of the situation of the time to understand why Rama did that. There was, first of all, for those of you not familiar with the story of the Ramayana, when Rama was in search of his wife Sita, who had been stolen by Ravana, he came to South India, and there he met the Vanaras, the monkeys, who offered to help him. And he met Sugriva, who was the brother of Vali. Vali was the king of the monkeys, and Sugriva thought that he was to be the king of the monkeys. And Sugriva offered his help to Rama if Rama would make a pact with him. And so they made a pact that the welfare of one would be the welfare of the other. And then Sugriva promised the help of all of his monkey army to take on the battle with Ravana in Sri Lanka. But then there was a problem. Vali had taken the throne, and Vali had a boon from Brahma, the creator. Because of Vali's great austerities that he had practiced, he had a boon that anyone who fights with me, Vali, half of their strength will be absorbed by me. So they will be left with only half of their strength, and I have the other half plus my own great strength, already superior to most beings in the world. And so he was undefeatable with anyone who faced him frontally for attack. And so the only way to kill him was from behind. And then according to the rules of combat, you were never supposed to attack an enemy from behind. It was always from the front. But then because Vali was a Vanara, a monkey, it was allowed to kill an animal from behind if you had to kill an animal. That was allowed. And so for these complex reasons, it was, and the reason that Sugriva's welfare now had become Rama's welfare because of the pact they had made. Therefore, Rama killed Vali. But again, the Ramayana can only be understood if we understand the sense of Dharma of the time and the sense of responsibility of the time. My own guru, Swami Vireshwaranandaji, he used to tell us when I was in training center, I've heard him say several times, that in the modern world, people are only concerned with rights. Everybody's concerned with rights. I want my rights. But we should be concerned with our responsibilities. Now, that doesn't mean in the case of, say, during the fight for civil rights for African Americans and the present concern of the rights of different people, that doesn't mean that if people are being oppressed by others, that they shouldn't fight for their rights. Yes, they should. The problem is that when the emphasis is only put on, I want my rights, I should be able to do anything I want, including I should be able to walk around without a mask when everyone is suffering from a pandemic, but my freedom is more important than other people not getting sick. And so I'll go anywhere I want to without my mask. I'll breathe on anybody I want to because I'm free. Nobody's going to tell me to wear a mask. This is a free country. No. Then freedom and individual rights has become a harmful phenomenon. So rights always have to be put in a context of responsibility. And so my guru used to tell us that, no, emphasize your responsibilities, not your rights. Yes, rights are there, but if you don't put them in a context of your responsibilities first, then rights become harmful. So that we have to understand the Ramayana. And then let me say about the greatness of the Ramayana just as literature. It's a tremendous piece of literature, 24,000 verses. And Valmiki is said to have been the first poet. Valmiki had there are different versions of his life story. According to one story, he was known as Agni Sharma first, and according to other, I forget his name according to other stories. But according to one story, he had, during a period of drought, when many people were suffering terribly, he could no longer support his parents, his wife, and family. And he was the breadwinner. It was his responsibility to support them. And so he turned to highway robbery in order to support his dependents, as he had no other means to feed them. But one day he made the mistake of attacking the Saptarshis, the seven primordial rishis, the rishis whose meditation supports the existence of the universe. They had come down to earth and were walking through the forest when this man attacked them. And they told him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I have no," because of their spiritual power, they were able to confront him and demanded, "Why are you robbing us?" And he said, "I have to feed my wife, my elderly parents, my family, my dependents." And they said, "Yes, you are feeding them, that we understand, but who is going to take the karma for these evil deeds you're doing?" And he said, "Oh, well, certainly my family will share in this. I'm doing it for their sake. They will share in it." And they said, "No, you go and ask them." So the young man went to his family, to his parents, and asked them, "You know that I am supporting you, feeding you by robbing, and sometimes I have to kill." And they said, "That's horrible, that's horrible." I said, "But I do it for your sake. I do it because it's the only way I have to feed you. So you will take part of the sin, the bad karma that I am acquiring by this, certainly, won't you?" And they said, "No, no, of course we're not going to do that. We have nothing to do with that. We're not robbers. That's your responsibility. How you feed us, that's your business. We are not going to take the karma." And he went to his wife, the same thing. Everyone in the family said, "No, your responsibility is to feed us. If you're robbing and doing other horrible things, that's your problem, not our problem." So then his eyes were opened and he realized that no, everyone is willing to take the benefit of my actions. No one is willing to share the cost of them. So he went back to the sages and asked them how to get out of the situation. So they initiated him into the Rama mantra, Rama, the name of Rama, but he had become so corrupt through his robbery that he couldn't say Rama. The holy word wouldn't come out of his mouth. So he said Mara, which means kill, kill. And so he sat and meditated on Mara, 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 and that gradually became reversed and became Rama, 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 Rama over the years of meditation. He sat in solitary, still meditation without moving from his seat so long that an anthill was built up around him. So that's how he got the name Valmiki. Valmika means an anthill, and so Valmiki means he who came out of an anthill. So he one day heard a voice telling him that he had become a sage. And he said, "No, I'm a robber." I said, "No, you've become a sage. So get up now and proceed." And so he got up from the anthill and he saw a pair of birds that were circling in the air, kissing each other, ready to make love. And he was enjoying the beauty of the sight of these two doves circling around each other in the air in movement of love, when suddenly an arrow whizzed past him and struck one of the birds and killed it. And so suddenly he said the verse, let's see if I can find it. Where's the verse? Ma nishara twamagama shashwati samaha yat koncham mitunad ekam abadhi kama mohitam. And then he said, "What is this that I have said?" The words are, "You shall find no rest." He addressed the archer. "You shall find no rest for endless years, for your slaying hand would not stop even for love." And he had never spoken words like that before. And then he heard a voice from heaven saying, "This is poetry that you have spoken." And so Valmiki is considered the first poet. You may wonder that, well, much of the Vedas were written in poetry, even the earliest part, the Samhitas. But those are said to have been heard by the rishis. That's the tradition, that they were heard by the rishis and just recorded. But Valmiki was the first to compose poetry, the Ramayana. And thus the Ramayana is considered the first poem in Indian literature and perhaps the first poem in the world. We don't know its antiquity, but it is thousands of years old. So the Ramayana is remarkable for many reasons. One thing, it's a tragedy in a sense. In India, you don't find tragedy because of the idea that good should always prevail. And so the Greek idea of tragedy, where a story ends with disaster and failure and so forth, that wasn't allowed in Indian literature. And of course, it's not allowed in the Ramayana also, but many parts of the Ramayana are deeply tragic. There's great pathos expressed in various parts of the Ramayana. So that when you see the Ram Leela, the reenactment of the Ramayana in villages across India, you'll see through the story people weeping, the audience all weeping because of the pathos of the story. And so it's full of pathos and a wonderful character development in the Ramayana. The characters are very human, many of them very admirable, some of them expressing great human weaknesses that we all can recognize. So very admirable and lovable characters, human weaknesses as well, great heroism, and heroism of two types. There's great martial heroism, that is military heroism, facing battle and so forth, and also moral heroism, which is even more important, or much more important, moral and spiritual heroism, standing on a moral principle even when it means destruction. I will do right, even though it means my own harm. And it's great just as a tale. In its essence, it's superior to things, in my opinion, and the opinion of many, to stories like the Lord of the Rings and the story of the superheroes. Not that those are bad. I love Lord of the Rings myself. I have read the series and also watched the movies. It's a great series and a wonderful work of literature. But the Ramayana is a tale of a quest. In fact, Ramayana means the tale of Rama, or the quest of Rama, Ayana of Rama, the quest or the travels or the progress of Rama. And so it's superior to the quest of the Lord of the Rings because it's like the Lord of the Rings, but with a ultimate point to it. Not just a story of interesting characters doing interesting things and going on a great adventure and succeeding, almost failing, but succeeding, but a story of the ultimate quest. And so it's like Harry Potter with a point to it. And Harry Potter also, I'm not criticizing that. That's a wonderful series of books. But this is like Harry Potter with a deep spiritual point to it. It's full of magic, demons, giants, animal characters, and it's full of adventure and full of magic as well. And so just as a tale, it's a wonderful story. But most important is it's the story of Rama, the story of Sita, the story of Lakshman, and the story of Hanuman. There are other figures that are very important, other great figures, but these figures are dominant in the Ramayana. And they, again, set the ideals for Indian civilization in a way that law books could never do, in a way that just abstract ideas could never do. They gave something tangible that people could see. You can look at the image of Rama and remembering the whole story, the incidents from the life of Rama, you know what a dharmic life is. You know how truthfulness works, how honesty works, how Rama followed the unjust order of his stepmother Kaikeyi and was banished to the forest for 14 years, and how his father was completely undone, so upset with this demand of his wife Kaikeyi that he himself died from heartbreak. But Rama said, no, my father gave his promise to Kaikeyi that he would fulfill whatever wish she had, and she has expressed her wish, and so my father's word must be fulfilled. And so he himself, on his own, went on banishment to the forest for 14 years. And Sita said, wherever Rama is, there my place is by his side. And so she also went into banishment with him, and Lakshmana went to protect the two of them. And so the ideas of fidelity, the ideas of dedication, the ideas of truthfulness, the ideas of honesty, the ideas of protecting one's word, and then the heroic virtues of Hanuman. Just to look at Hanuman gives, as I said at the beginning, gives one strength. And so the story of the Ramayana, as I have often said, if the story of the Ramayana and the stories of the Mahabharata, as well as other tales of India, but these two central tales, with many, many subplots and many side stories that both of these long epics have, that if these are ever discovered by the cartoonists and animationists and movie makers of the West, then there'll be endless food for worthwhile and uplifting entertainment for people. Again, they're like not just Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and so forth, but they are superheroes also with a point to it, with an ultimate point to their lives. And so let me end this talk just on that word of praise for the influence that these great, great figures had. Whether it's found in time that there was a historical core to the story of Rama or not, there must have been a great spiritual power that manifested as Rama, or that manifested that we know as Sri Rama, and which presented the ideal of Dharma to Indian civilization. And so my belief is that the story of the Ramayana itself must have a historical core, because such a great tale and such an influential tale and such a long tradition, thousands of years of worship, it couldn't have come out of nothing. So let me give announcements, and then if there are questions, I will take those before I give a closing prayer. So for announcements, on Tuesday, we will have the usual Upanishad class at 7:30 in the evening. And this Tuesday, we will begin the study of the Kena Upanishad, which is a beautiful, short Upanishad, not as short as the Isha, but a beautiful Upanishad. Like the Isha, it's full of paradox, meant for bringing the mind to understanding a higher resolution. And then on Thursday, we'll continue with the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And next Sunday, I will speak on the non-dualism of Sri Ramakrishna. I forgot to leave a question and answer session this month. I tried to leave the last Sunday for question and answers. I forgot this month when working out the schedule. So I will be sure to have a question and answer session next month. So let me see questions, and I always appreciate seeing the greetings of people. Is Rama sending Sita away an example of his Dharma as a king, outweighing his Dharma as a husband? Yes, that's a good way to put it, that his responsibility, well, let me back up and say that the idea of Dharma is that the welfare of the many always outweighs the welfare of the one. And so there's a saying, and I wish I've never known the Sanskrit of this, but it's something that Swami Vivekananda mentions as having been in his childhood primer in the first grade. And that is that for the sake of the family, one can renounce one's own self-interest. For the sake of the village, one can renounce the interests of the family. For the sake of the nation, one can sacrifice the interests of the village. And for the sake of all, one can renounce everything. And so again, the higher interest always outweighs the lower interest. And so it should always be remembered that Rama was not because of a lack of love and dedication from Rama. It was extraordinarily painful for him to see Sita banished. But since you bring this up, let me mention one other thing which I wanted to bring into the talk, but as I was coming to the end, I saw there wasn't time to mention it, but I wanted to, so I will now in relationship to your question, Kyle. In 2015, so just a few years ago, 6 years ago, it was noted in the Times of India that a new manuscript, the oldest existing manuscript of the Ramayana, was found in the Asiatic Society in Calcutta. You may wonder how that could happen, but in places like that in India, where many manuscripts were collected from all over India, too many for a few scholars to go through, there are countless manuscripts lying untended in libraries in India, big libraries in India. And so this manuscript was discovered, among others, the oldest existing manuscript of the Ramayana from the 6th century of the Common Era, AD, as it's usually called. And that does not have the first chapter or the last chapter, the Balakanda and the Uttarakanda. The Balakanda is the first chapter in the Valmiki Ramayana, which tells the childhood of Rama. And the last chapter, Uttarakanda, is the one where Sita is banished and where she finally enters into the fire. That also is not present. And scholars had already argued for a century that the Balakanda and the Uttarakanda, the first and the last chapters, didn't seem to belong to the Ramayana. Yes, they continued the story. The story was consistent, but the language was different, and they showed a different sense of geography. They showed a later sense of geography from the main books of the Ramayana. That's important because in the Tulsi Ramayana, the most famous of and the most influential of all of the secondary Ramayanas, the one written by the great Saint Tulsidas in the Middle Ages in India, in an old form of Hindi, Eastern Hindi, you find that he doesn't have Sita banished again to the forest. And so why? We don't know. It was often thought that it was because he couldn't bear the thought that Sita was banished and then had to go through the exile and the fire the second time at the end of her banishment. But this manuscript, again, is a complete manuscript, and the oldest, but without the first and the last chapters, which means that the material in the first and the last chapters was of a later date, as scholars had assumed. Again, because of, just to explain a little bit, because the center of political power in the first and last chapters is different from what it was in the main part of the Ramayana, and showing a later history to the composition of those texts. And so it may be that she was not banished or had to enter the fire the second time at all. Is the Indian spiritual literature the one with more volumes? Yes, the Indian scriptures, there's not like one Bible or one Quran. There's the Vedas, but then there are so many scriptural works in India. And the Ramayana itself is several times larger than the Iliad. And the Mahabharata is much larger than the Ramayana. And so they are the longest epic poems in the world. The Mahabharata is the longest in the world, and the Ramayana is extraordinarily long, 24,000 verses. Then what is the spiritual power of Hanuman Chalisa hymn, commonly chanted, played in the morning in Northern Indian household? The Hanuman Chalisa is 40 verses on Hanuman. It's a wonderful text, and many people chant it every day. And it has caught on among some Western devotees, especially in the circle devotees of Neem Karoli Baba. And some of those devotees are also Ramakrishna devotees, so that has spread into some of our centers, like in Hollywood. They often have Hanuman Chalisa also because of it being brought by devotees who are shared their devotion between Ramakrishna and Neem Karoli Baba. But it's a wonderful text on Hanuman. And the love of Sita for Rama was unconditional and devoted. That is the only way that women loved. Why is it so hard for man to appreciate this kind of love? Yes, that's true. And I don't have an answer for you, Connie. I'm sorry. I don't know why. Men are very different animals from women. So what to say? I don't excuse it and I don't understand it myself. We are so blessed to be having this much fun in class. Blessed be the teacher, blessed be the Sangha. Thank you for that. And didn't Swami Vivekananda Maharaj consider himself to be an incarnation of Nala Nila, the monkey engineers of the Rama Setu? That I don't know. I've never heard that. If you find a source for that, if you find somewhere where it's mentioned, please let me know, because I don't know that. I just know that Sri Ramakrishna, it's said that Sri Ramakrishna considered him an incarnation of Jambavan. But the other is interesting. And so if that is a conflicting idea, that would be interesting. But it doesn't need to be conflicting, because Sri Ramakrishna said that Swamiji was an incarnation of Shiva. He also said that he was the incarnation of one of the Saptarshis, one of the seven rishis. And Holy Mother said that he was the incarnation of Bharata herself, Indian civilization herself. And so all three of those were true in the same person. So what is the meaning of Tad Dharma Paramam Mama in Gita? Is it the spiritual realm abode of the Lord, such as Vaikuntha? Which is the best unbiased commentary on the Gita? So yes, my Paramam Padam, the highest abode of Sri Krishna, as he says in the Gita, that could be a place like Vaikuntha, according to some explanations. I would explain it the way that Shankaracharya and other Advaita Acharyas explain it. That is, his Paramam Padam is the state of Brahman, the absolute. And so the state of absolute identity with God. The best Gita commentary in English, everyone has their favorites. I can only give you my favorites. I'm very fond of Swami Swarupananda's translation. It doesn't have much commentary, just short notes. Swami Tapasyanandaji's translation, also more with notes than a commentary. But there are many others. Is it possible to have a vision of Lord Narayana and Sri Ramakrishna? If someone is bhakta of both Lord Narayana and Sri Ramakrishna, certainly. Certainly. That's the last question, so I'll end with that, and I'll just say that, not speaking of Lord Narayana, but of Shiva, that Swami Gambhirananda, whom I knew well and was very devoted to. When I first knew him, he was General Secretary of the Ramakrishna Mutt and Ramakrishna Mission. Then he became Vice President, and then he became President. So after he left his position as General Secretary and was being appointed Vice President, he went on pilgrimage to Amarnath in Kashmir, the great cave in the high mountains at the altitude of 13,500 feet, high in the Himalayas, where there's an ice lingam of Shiva. And so when he came back from there, Swami Atmarupananda, who had accompanied him, told us that when they came out of the cave, Swami Gambhirananda was in a very abstracted state. And so Swami Atmarupananda asked him what was wrong. And he said, I saw Sri Ramakrishna. And he said, you saw him? Yeah, in the cave, I saw Sri Ramakrishna. You mean you saw him and the lingam, or you just saw Sri Ramakrishna? He said, I saw Sri Ramakrishna. You mean you saw, in place of the lingam, you saw Sri Ramakrishna instead? And he said, yes. I went to bow to the lingam, but there I found Sri Ramakrishna, the living Sri Ramakrishna sitting. I bowed to him. And so Sri Ramakrishna, who is Sarva Deva Devi Swarupa, the embodiment of all gods and goddesses, he is Shiva, he is Narayana, he is Krishna, he is Rama, he is Durga, he is Kali. And he can be seen and realized as any of those deities, because all of them ultimately are the same reality. So with that, let me close with another chant. And this one is to Hanuman. It comes at the end of Ram Nam. Om Yatra yatra raghunatha kirtanam tatra tatra kritamastakangjalim vashpavari paripurnalochanam marutim namatarakshasandakam. Wherever Rama's praise is sung, there is Hanuman also, his head bowed, his hands folded in reverence, and his eyes overflowing with tears. we salute Hanuman, the destroyer of demons. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. What's that? Oh.